Welcome to Tea with Tanya. I'm your host, Tanya Ambrose, an average millennial navigating life as a maternal health professional, nonprofit founder, and grad student. Join me in the tea tasting room where we spill the tea on finding balance and promoting positive living while doing it all. Hey friend, welcome back to another episode of Tea with Tanya. Thank you for joining me here in the tea tasting room. As you know, it's always a pleasure to sit here and talk with you as we work towards living our best lives. Now today, before we get into today's episode, I do want to talk about the tea of the week because I am trying this tea for the very first time. And I'm super excited. Like it's delicious. It's delicious. It has an acquired taste to me right now. I don't know if that's a me thing, but I'm gonna give it a try. But this is my first time trying this tea. And this tea I got from one of my podcast sisters. That's Whitney from Impostrix podcast. And this tea it's from, I think the brand is called Chester Row. I think that's how you say it. And it's part of the Chakra tea collection. And I'm having the Crown Chakra, which is an herbal tea blend. It's completely caffeine free. And it is made up, all the ingredients are chamomile, peppermint, lavender, passion flower, kava. And, this transcendent blend is to encourage balance and calm the central nervous system, something that I need to be doing because, when you're doing a lot and you're trying to find the balance and you're doing it all while trying to find the balance, sometimes being able to drink tea that can bring some sort of calming presence to me, it's key. And I think that's going to be the theme for this semester while of grad school, like just finding teas, especially my evening teas. In the morning, I know I have a routine for my morning teas, but definitely at night, I want to be more consistent with the teas that are made primarily or help to contribute to calmness. That's what I need. Because by the time the end of the day comes around, I'm usually tired, probably feeling overwhelmed, probably feeling stressed. And of course, I do my nighttime routine to ensure that I am getting in a space of calmness before going to bed. But that's not always the case every night. Again, consistency is key. But I'm also not going to sit here and let you know that thinking that I'm some perfect person. Every night is not going to be the same. And that is okay, especially as a busy nonprofit founder, especially as a podcast host, talking to you every week, as a grad student, a full-time employee. There's just so many different things, and someone who's also working on accomplishing more of her goals and dreams. So I definitely want to incorporate more teas that works towards balancing or calming the nervous system, because that's going to be key. For you listening, if you are someone who's super busy or maybe overly anxious or just need something to keep you calm as you prepare for bed or for your nighttime routine, definitely want to try teas that work towards that. But I will leave the link in the show note for this one. I know I said that sometimes and I do forget sometimes, but I am definitely going to leave the link to this particular tea in the show notes. Today's affirmation, or this week's affirmation, is going to be, and it's chosen because it's going to coincide with what we're going to talk about in this episode. But today's affirmation of the week is, I can make and commit to healthy choices even when it's not easy. I'm going to say that again. I can make and commit to healthy choices even when it's not easy. And that's going to coincide with today's episode because, as you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about nutrition for busy people. Life can be very fast-paced, and finding the time, ideally, to make nutritious choices or nutritious meals can be very challenging. But today, our guest, and of course I'm going to let her introduce herself, but our guest, she's an expert in her field, and I know she's going to have some valuable insights into how we can fuel our bodies when it comes to the right nutrients and what we need to do, even when the clock is ticking, even when it's just busy, even when you think you're running out of time, even when you think that you can't make nutritious meat because you're on a particular budget. We're going to talk about all of that. But you know how we do here. I'm going to let her introduce herself when she comes on to the podcast. But I am looking forward to learning more about nutrition, more about what I can do to incorporate a balanced or nutritious life in the midst of the chaos or the midst of the busyness of our day-to-day lives. So let's get into it. So, hi, Britney. Thank you for joining me here on Tea with Tanya. How are you today?
Good. How are you? I'm so excited to be here.
Yes, I'm happy to have you. I feel like it's been a long time coming without us even knowing it's a long time coming. It was going to happen at some point in time, but, it's happening now.
That's right.
what better way to have you here to talk about nutrition and how we can be better for busy people like me? Because, I'm out here sometimes doing a lot. I was going to say doing the most, which I just did, but, nevertheless,
Doing the best, yeah.
being busy. I mean, you're a mom, so you're busy too. You're an entrepreneur, all these different things. So I think this having you with your knowledge and your expertise talking to us about nutrition and these different things, it'll be a good episode. But before we get into it, we are very nosy people here in the tea tasting room, like I call it. So tell us about yourself, your background, how you got into what you're doing. Don't leave anything out. Just tell us, sell you to us.
Okay, well, I can sometimes be a very long storyteller and go off on details that don't matter, so you might have to rein me in. But I'm right there
Oh,
with you.
okay.
I like to know the information and be nosy. So, I was born and raised in Louisville, Kentucky, and I live here with my husband, who was also born and raised here. Side note: this is where you get the information. We've known each other since middle school, which is
Ooh.
wild. But we didn't date until like his junior year of college. So, and then we have two kids. I have a 10-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we homeschool both of them. So
Mm.
we're definitely busy folks, and we have lived in the city for majority of our lives, and then for
Mm.
our married life, we've lived in the city. Like we have, so like, let's see, 12 years we've lived in the city, and then a year ago we
Ooh.
decided to move to a small little country town because we wanted an acre and we wanted to raise chickens and try to start a garden, and we have like flubbed our way through it. And we like learn as we go. But wanted I wanted space for our kids to be able to run and not feel so confined. Like I felt like a helicopter mom. Like our
Mm.
neighborhood, I love it and I miss it, but I felt like our kids weren't being able to be outside as much. And we tried to grow a garden and just didn't work with our space. But and this is also a part of the conversation, you can grow like herbs in your window, but with our kids we wanted them to be able
Mm.
to like have a stronger connection to their food, even if that was long term or being surrounded by like people who had farms and cattle or whatever, like to be able to see that process. We do not have that. So
Yeah,
anyways, that was like the dream. So we are city folk making our way to the country.
to the country.
Yes. So, I mean, it's been interesting. There's pros and cons to all of it, but it's quiet, and that's been really nice to have that peaceful moments. But I was a hairstylist, so here we are. You're getting all of this information.
Tell us.
So for about like close to a decade, I was a hairstylist. I love
Mm.
doing hair, and I did a lot with like the wedding industry. I did makeup
Mm.
as well. And then I had our second baby and I needed to switch careers. I needed to find something that I could work part time. And I worked at a photography film lab, but then my health declined in between baby one and baby
Mm.
two. I struggled really bad with, like, really severely with postpartum depression and anxiety, had a misdiagnosed autoimmune disorder in between those. And then after our second, things started to really go south in the mental health space for me.
Mm.
But I started dabbling too in like the more holistic realm of things, but I didn't quite understand all of it. So when I was struggling with my depression, I realized that there was something deeper. And this is no shame, but I just didn't want to take the medication route because I was like, okay, I
Yeah.
want to get to the root of what's going on, just from personal experiences with that and all that. Like, I just wanted to figure out a different route. So I sought help from a traditional or a functional nutritional therapist as well. And
Mm.
it hands down changed the trajectory of my life from not only the way that I felt, but after that, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to help people understand what their body is capable of doing from a functional standpoint, and that we don't have to give it a band aid. We can do the hard work to make it feel better. So that's kind of how I got here. And I own my own business, I own my own practice, and I've had that for 2 years now. So I just celebrated two
Oh,
years this month. Thank
congrats.
you.
Congrats. So that's an interesting story. So you were a hairstylist And then because your health took a turn for the worse, you were misdiagnosed. Now you're now dealing with your current business.
Yeah. Yep.
Usually I'll leave this for like the end of the episode, but tell us more about after discovering this world. What was the, I mean, I guess we heard the motivating factor, but just tell us, how has it been, not necessarily from an, I guess, entrepreneur standpoint, because I mean, we know it's hard. The glitz and the glamour on social media, they don't tell you the tears you'll cry, they don't tell you how hot, they don't tell you that part. But as far as like helping your clients, how has that, like, is that like the most fulfilling thing you would say from being in this career now? Because you're a long way from a hairstylist.
Yeah.
Like you're used to making individuals pretty and thinking of their hair, but now you're from a more holistic standpoint. So is that like one of the most rewarding things you think you'll
It
say?
is. I mean, even as a hairstylist, I had a therapist tell me, who was a client, like, you are sometimes more qualified as a therapist than just hairstylist. You take on that
Mm-hmm.
role, and I feel like I was called to be a helper in that sense, or I don't know if that's
Yeah,
necessarily the right word, but to care on people and let them see the value in themselves and be a listening ear. And I feel like doing this from a nutritional standpoint, because it's a lifestyle, like, it's, you
yeah,
encompass everything and you hear what they've gone through, and no one listening to them, to, and this is feedback too, of like the being able to have, like, they feel heard and validation,
yeah,
and like, oh, okay, so what I'm feeling, there has to be a reason for why I'm feeling the way I'm feeling. And then when they say that, like that feels good, like that feels good, in a fact that, like, fulfilling. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it feels very fulfilling, and that for sure.
Well, I'm glad you're here, because if you're listening to this podcast, if you're not following Brittany on social media or Instagram, I highly encourage that. And I'll definitely have her information in the show notes. But she does amazing work. And I'm just happy to be talking to you because for me, I've had to acknowledge that I'm a busy person. Like for somewhere in the back of my mind, I was being delusional, thinking, "Oh, you're not busy. You have mastered time management. You have done it all." And I think for me, growing up in the Caribbean, I was used to coming home from school back, in high school, primary school, to a home cooked meal, breakfast, lunch or dinner. That's what we grew up. Living in America now, and I've been here. Oof, I'm not gonna even say, it, but I've been here for a while. But for me, at the core of who I am, I'm still making or cooking my Caribbean dishes. Of course, you venture into certain different meals that you may see on TikTok, or just in general, you want to try different culture or food or whatever the case may be. But at the core of who I am, I'm very Antiguan, I'm very Caribbean. I'm gonna make that meal. And I remember I had a doctor on an Instagram live that I was doing a couple of years back. That's how I started this whole podcast anyway. And she was also a Jamaican doctor, but she's been a doctor for years, and she was working at one of the top hospitals. And I asked her, I said, being from the Caribbean, and we're trying to eat our food so we can feel close to home, or it's just what we grew up on, essentially. How would I know if the food is as nutritious? Because we grew up on a lot of starches, like rice, potatoes, it's heavy starch based diet. But at the same time, for me, I felt like I was the healthiest when living back in Antigua.
Mhm.
And I remember her telling me, you can eat your cultural food. Doesn't matter when, if you're listening, doesn't matter where in the world you are. You can eat your cultural food, but you want to ensure that it's balanced, right? Like you have like your veg, your fruits, and all these different things. But I think for me now, being as busy as I am, I have either lost the desire to make a home cooked meal. I mean, I do because I have to eat,
Right.
but I have lost the desire. I'm just making a meal for the sake of I have to eat, to be honest, sometimes. Like I haven't been loving on my food when I'm cooking these days, if I can be transparent. I don't know if it's laziness, if it's just tired, or I don't think it's laziness. I just think it's more of a tired standpoint or just
Can
being
I
busy.
interject really quick?
Go
Okay,
ahead.
can we take the lazy out of your vocabulary? Because, girl, you are doing the most, like we just talked about, and it's all about perspective. And so it's exhausting. It's exhausting to do what you're doing and then also think about cooking a like nutrient dense meal. Like, it's a lot to
Yeah,
think about, especially if you feel like you're doing it on your own and you don't have the tips. Like, it's gonna feel hard.
right. And then sometimes we tend to gravitate to the unhealthier food. And it's just not, again, for me, I often say in the podcast that I am priming my body for pregnancy, whenever that may be, I don't know.
Yeah.
But outside of just preparing my body for pregnancy, it's just more having a healthier lifestyle. Because I can tell, when you're in tune with your body, when something is off. And then I'm someone who I have chronic migraines or chronic constipation, not maybe TMI, but we're just going to be
No,
open and
that
honest
is
here,
not TMI for me. I don't know for listeners, but this is my work.
Yes. Right. Well, so, but what are some of the common challenges that we as busy individuals face when it comes to maintaining not only a healthy diet, but also a balanced diet? Because sometimes, it may end up being fast food tonight, especially if you have kids. I don't have time to leave work, pick you up from school, then come home and cook your meal because I'm exhausted from the commute sometimes, especially as a mom. If you're a mom listening, you may have children, or even if you're a single woman or someone who just doesn't have anyone to cook for but yourself. Like, what are some of these challenges? Why is it so hard? Besides, of course, being busy, but what is it? What are some challenges? Like, why is it so hard for us to maintain that healthy and
I
balanced
mean,
diet?
having healthy food that's quick on hand, it can feel like a big challenge because, like you said, you're busy, or say you don't have children, and cooking for one or two people can sometimes even be more difficult than cooking a big batch of something, because then you have
Mm-hmm.
leftover food. But then I think it's changing the mindset too of okay, if I can batch cook, making the time to batch cook, finding that time is difficult for sure.
Yeah.
And sometimes people do go out to eat and eat for fast food, but that always isn't really fast. And then you're spending more money because you have to think, and this may be too tedious, but you have to spend the gas to get there. You have to spend the money and the taxes to pay for all
Mm-hmm.
this. And when really, if you can come up with a few quick snacks that have a balance of the fat, protein, and a carb, and we're not talking carbs such as breads and things of that nature, but carbs that are fiber, so
Mm-hmm.
vegetables or things like that. But anyway, having the quick food on hand and knowing what to eat and how often to eat, those can be really difficult. And then making your goals too big, for
Mm-hmm.
what your health is. We go into, and this is fitting too because we're at the beginning of the year, but you have these outlandish goals for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So how are you going to get there? If you think of it too quickly, it's going to feel defeating, and then you're not going to do it. So it's not you
Yeah.
got to get out of that all or nothing mentality and say, okay, if I can't eat a nutritious meal 7 days a week, how many days a week can I do that? Can I logistically make that happen? So that's taking your big goal and breaking it down into smaller attainable goals. So this quarter or this week,
Mm-hmm.
even don't even think 3 months ahead, because again, for some people that's too big, because what they're facing the next day is a lot of life. And if you do a
Yeah.
lot of life many days in a row and you're trying to get your Q1 goals under hand, I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. So I feel like those are some common challenges.
I think for me, I'm a very I'll say I'm a moody eater. So as you're talking to me, you're talking to me as a 5-year-old at this point, trying to understand that because I think I know it all when it comes to nutrition, and I absolutely don't know anything. I'm just going from my home economics class from back in high school at this point. But the thing is, I am a very moody eater. So I will be like, okay, I'm going to meal prep or whatever the case may be. But then what I'm cooking, let's say on a Saturday, Sunday for the week, by the time Monday, Tuesday come, I am not in the mood to eat that.
Mm.
Like I'm pretty consistent with my breakfast. I will say that because it's literally similar. It's simple, some porridge or some egg or so. Like it's literally a simple breakfast, but also trying to be nutritious as well. But I am someone who I am dealing with chronic migraines. Unfortunately, I am still dealing with constipation issues and having to get different referrals and these different things to these specialists to see what exactly is causing my migraines or my constipation or whatever the case may be. But I think again, for me being a moody eater, like what are some things in your line of work that you've observed that could be, I guess, maybe an impact on our hectic schedule? Because for me, I'm thinking I'm attributing me not eating a balanced diet to my migraines. I'm not sure if that's the case. I go for allergy tests this week as well, so I'll find out. But again, like, what are some impacts? Because again, I'm thinking, okay, let me go eat some McDonald's. Not that I do, but I'm just saying that would be the easier alternative to some people who may have access to that, or like back in Antigua because we love our KFC. Let me go have some. Let me go have some KFC because it's cheaper or it's just easier on the go, and I don't want to have to go home to cut vegetables or fruits or whatever the case may be. But then also given the world that we're living in right now, food is expensive.
Yeah.
It's not that sometimes, again, for me, I'm a moody eater, but it's not that we don't want to eat healthy. But sometimes, as you've seen, the unhealthy version of foods, they're much more cheaper. The healthy alternatives, you got to think twice. Like, okay, do I want to buy this organic this, or do I like what are we doing? Like, what are some of the impacts? Because again, food scarcity is the thing. Like, I went into Kroger the other day and I was wondering, like, what in the world is going on? Like, literally, all the fruits and veg were gone. What was there was just not even looking appealing, and it was been like that for like weeks, which I was just a bit shocked because I'm like, Kroger, I'm coming here every 5 minutes, and again, given where I live at, because I don't have like a farmer's market or have access to more organic food, and I know I'm very long-winded, but what are some of your observations on the impact of what a hectic schedule can have on our nutritional
So going
choices?
to, I guess, like being a moody eater, like but you prep the
Mm-hmm.
food. If you like something that you can do, so you don't want to cook at all, like chopping up your vegetables for the week on a Saturday or a Sunday, and then small batch cooking and using a set of spices that day. And you just threw like a one sheet pan and throw it in the oven. And then say you don't want to eat the same thing, then you like 2 days later, you have your vegetables chopped, then change it up with another set of spices. So and then, sorry, I've had a couple thoughts like as you were talking, but
I know I was long-winded too.
no, that's okay. Because I feel like those can be two separate answers. So like
Mm-hmm.
small batch cooking so that you can change up the spices because that can change the whole flavor of a meal and then you're not bored
Yeah.
with what you're eating. Because sometimes in seasons of healing, you have to stay so that you know what you're eating and that you know you're putting good things in your body for maybe a week or two as you get the hang of it. You might have to eat the same thing over and over so that you know you're being fed, but maybe change up the spices and then start incorporating as you have the time or you feel like you have the time, new recipes. Because sometimes simple
Mm.
recipes and cooking smaller or chopping up your meat or chopping up your veggies and putting them in containers with like, okay, this is going to be Mediterranean or this is going to be like Caribbean flavor, like whatever that is, like it's just like organizing your mind in a way to be able
Mm.
to tackle those things. And then going back to like food is expensive. It is insanely expensive. I saw like a reel talking about how organic is now the same cost as like conventional, and it's hard. And we are a family who
Mm.
budgets pretty heavily. And so I tell this to all my clients, and I think this is an important thing to live by is by the good, better, best mentality. I just had this conversation with like a client today. Like, you need food. You need you need it. You need it to survive, and you need that and water. And so you have to think too, like, okay, I can't get organic. I don't have a farmer's market. I don't have a farmer near me, but what can I do to eat real food? And the goal is real food, not necessarily the packaged
Mm.
food in the middle. You want to shop like the perimeter of the store. And so good is like conventionally raised or grown that you get at the grocery. Better is like grass fed, organic, pasture raised in the grocery store. And then best is always going to be from the farmer's market or straight from the farmer. But again, that option isn't for everybody. And
Mm-hmm.
so there's no shame in doing what you're able to do as long as you're getting the real food in your body. And then because I say that because your food is going to, I think food can be healing, but I also think that we were made to also be able to enjoy food. This is
Yeah.
going down like a whole different tangent, but like,
No, that's fine. I love it. Go
okay,
ahead.
I
Yeah.
mean, we were made to enjoy food, and
Mm-hmm.
but there are times, and like I said earlier, in seasons of healing, that looks different, and maybe that is, yes, this comes back to your busy schedule. How would you make this time for that? But making your dessert that you want, so you know exactly what's going in there, and you have control of that, and you're not giving that control over to and paying with your dollars to keep putting money into foods that aren't going to bring
You joy or making you
you.
feel good while eating. Because I think sometimes we tend to eat because we know we have to eat. And I think that goes back to when you mentioned about even with meal prepping or just preparing your food with different spices. Sometimes we tend to use the same set of spices with every meal. And
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I guess for me, I think I was like, your taste buds get used to one thing, and then it's same thing. So that's for me. Maybe that's probably why I'm also a moody eater. 'Cause I'm just tired because I'm a victim of using the same
Mm-hmm.
spices ever so often because one, it's quick and easy, or they right at my hand because the pantry has a bunch of different flavors. Because every time I go to the store, I'm just buying stuff, thinking I'm going to make a particular meal, but the mood by the time I get home from the grocery store, that mood, like the meat from the grocery store and the meat in the house are two different meats, and that could be like from I was spending an hour in the grocery store,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a 20-minute drive from the grocery store to home. I could be planning that meal in my head, and by the time I pull into the yard, it's like, okay, well, let's go have some cereal.
Yeah.
I'm just keeping it
Yeah. No, that's valid.
like the thought process of just thinking about that particular meal, and then you're getting hungry and you can just imagine yourself eating said meal.
Mm-hmm.
But for me, at some point in time, I'm like, okay, you know what? I get home, I have to do this, or I'm just no longer in the mood. I'm going to do it later, and then I don't do that, anymore.
Well, I think too, it's important that you listen to what your body does. Like after you eat that cereal, see how you sleep that night, or pay attention to what your body is telling you. Like, do you have a
Mm,
migraine the next day? But if you eat a satiating meal with the good fat, a nice protein and some veggies, like pay attention. And it may not happen instantly, but as far as like the migraines and things like that, but pay
mm,
attention to how you feel after you have a satiating meal. Like, and you're eating a good meal like that. Like, are you bloated? Are you constipated? Like
mm.
all of those things. So, it's going to take some trial and error and figuring it out too.
And I think because I was having a conversation earlier today with someone, and we were talking about basically wanting to eat better, wanting to ensure that our lifestyle is consistent with our thoughts, like what we see for our future self. We want to eat healthy, and this person was a mom, and I'll just give her a shout out. Her name is Junique. That's my cousin. Shout out to Junique. I'm probably out in your business now, but as a busy mom, working her amazing job, going to school, and then still having to be a wife and a parent. Sometimes meal planning or meal prepping doesn't always work, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And she's someone that when she puts her mind to something, she's gonna get it done. I will say that. But sometimes, you have a child, like you want to eat healthy because she's been on that kick as well. But then you may wake up late when it's time to take your child to school.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have time to make that nutritious breakfast. So how can we, I guess, make informed choices, or how can we ensure that we're having an effective or efficient meal planning and preparation, especially when our schedules are demanding or time is limited? Because again, like I said, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, on the weekends, I'm going to meal prep. That's not everybody's situation.
Mm-hmm.
People work around the clock. People don't have the time to be on the weekends. Oh, let me meal prep. I have this bigger life. Because sometimes, on social media, I think for me, you see people talking about meal planning, but sometimes these are people, and I don't know what their story are, but they have help sometimes,
Right.
or they have the resources where they can do that. Where some of us, like myself, we're doing, it's like a one-man show. Like, if you're single or you're person living alone, you're a one-man show. Or even if you're a mom with kids and a husband, it's still that's a very small team. And then we don't know what husband or daddy's schedule is, or mom. So there's so many moving parts. But how can we, I guess, create and cultivate or make informed choices when it comes to one of the types of food we're eating, but making that conscious effort to really and truly factor in meal planning. And I think for me, before you answer that question, and hopefully I don't let you lose a train of thought. But for me, I think what gets me overwhelmed is that thinking that meal planning needs to be from Monday to Friday, right? So when I'm thinking I have to cook for every meal between Monday and Friday, that's just it. I think that's what turns me off. Because I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, I gotta eat this on Thursday. That was like a Monday meal. I want to eat something else by Thursday, and Friday I want to have my pizza because that's my favorite food. But I mean, I don't have it every week. But so I guess my mind sometimes plays tricks on me. So I guess what can we do to ensure that we're consistent with meal planning when time is limited in our busy schedule, but ensuring that the meal is as nutritious as possible?
So I think flexibility, like giving yourself flexibility for yourself, I guess, like, and making sure
Mm.
that you're planning easier ish meals, or maybe you feel like maybe like one of the meals from from home is complicated to make. And then you have another couple meals that are easier to make and are nutrient dense.
Mhm.
Maybe you are like, say Monday, you're like, oh, I'm making this Monday. But that, like you said, you wake up late, you do whatever, be flexible with yourself. Like, I'm not going to have this today. I'm going to prep this sheet pan dish today. And then I'm going to see when my schedule's lighter and make this like really intensive meal. Like, just having flexibility, because, and making sure you're prepping foods that are easy. Like, in a sense, like my favorite, I mean, this might be jumping ahead, but like my favorite is, those sausages, like not breakfast sausage, but those like sausage links with some
Mm-hmm.
chicken and
Mm-hmm.
veggies and tomato paste. And you either cut it all up, maybe that's two dishes, but similar. One's just on the skillet that we do, and then one we just put it all in a dish and then put in the oven. And you change
Mm-hmm.
up the spices, add some nutritional yeast to make it taste kind of cheesy. And you do it in there for like 20, 30 minutes, and then it's done. And you toss it a little bit with some oil and like tallow or duck fat. I mean, and I think we are making nutrition too complicated. I think that people
Okay.
are struggling to maybe wrap their minds around it being such a complex thing, but you really just need to make sure you have a protein, like a healthy fat. We want to stay away from those hydrogenated oils like canola, vegetable, soybean, sunflower. Those are all going to cause inflammation in the body. So we want to stay away from
Brittany, now, come on now. Say that again. What are we staying away from? Say that part again, because now I got to make a list.
Okay, hydrogenated oils. So those are canola oil and then vegetable oil, sunflower, soybean oil. There's a lot, and all of those are going to cause inflammation in the body. And so what we want, it's like people say this all the time. We want to cook like we are like our grandmothers or great grandmothers cooked. Like they had it right. Like, and this again, take with a grain of salt because it depends on what's going on with your body and as far as like what you're able to eat. But like butter, like we want butter over margarine. Like, that grass fed butter is going to be healthier than eating the margarine.
Mm.
You've got olive oil for like cold cooking or low temperature cooking, anything below 400. Tallow, duck fat on sweet potatoes or cut up potato, like just dice them,
Mm-hmm.
toss them, throw in the oven, and it is so good. And when you eat it, and coconut oil, I'm trying to think of some other ones, bacon fat, and it comes down to quality too.
Mm.
When you eat fats like this, but it's so good for your body. Like your body craves that kind of fat. And it's your heart's preferred source of energy, which we've been taught all of these years that it's not. Like it actually, we've been taught that it causes harm, and really it doesn't. And so we want to be cooking with those types of fat. And then it's going to make our food taste way better. So that's what I mean too. We're meant to enjoy food. Like eating healthy does not have to be salads and cucumbers, and which cucumbers are good. No, I'm not knocking cucumbers. So
Yeah.
don't at me, anybody who likes cucumbers or diehard cucumber fans. But it's not like rabbit food. Like eating nutritionally or like nutritious is not rabbit food.
No, I appreciate that. So now that we're here, without giving us everything, because guys, if you want, you can go to her page. But like, what are some maybe quick and healthy go-to meals for busy days, or just in general? I guess I don't know. We're talking about being busy, but what are some quick and nutritious meals? Again, you don't have to give us everything if it's one or two. Like, but what are someone listening can think about? Okay, I can do this. I can make this, and I can feed me and my family, or it can just be for me if I'm cooking for one. Like, what are some things that we can incorporate? Because I know you mentioned like olive oil, duck fat, and coconut oil being the healthier
Mm-hmm.
oils for us to use. So, what are some other meals now that we can use?
Like I mentioned, that one sheet, like that cookie sheet, like grab one of those,
Yeah.
cut up your vegetables of choice, like onions, broccoli, radishes, carrots, put some pre-cooked, like throw your chicken in an instant pot and put some bone broth in there instead of water. Again, it's like you're
Uh-huh.
thinking differently about food and trying to find ways to bring more nutrient dense foods into your diet. And then dice up those sausage links, add some spices with
Hmm.
the nutritional yeast, throw it in the oven at 400, 420, and then cook it for like 20, 30 minutes and kind of keep an eye. It depends on how crispy you want it, if you will.
Yeah.
And then another go-to that we love is this hamburger bowl. You just
Mm.
ground up beef. So that could be beef or bison or ground turkey. I mean, you can really make it however you want it. And you just do that in a pan with some oil, dice up onions, garlic, like minced garlic or fresh garlic, however you want to do it. Add some tomatoes, and then again, nutritional yeast. I love nutritional yeast. We don't do a ton of dairy, or at least I don't. So when I want that taste of dairy, I'll either add like goat cheese or I'll do nutritional yeast and then put it in a bowl with like some greens. And it is so good. And you add we make a special sauce with it. But then this is something you can add in when you have more time to make a special sauce. Like it's just like Dijon mustard, mayo, like avocado mayo, pickles, garlic, and onion powder. And it's like super easy. You whip it up. But if you don't have time for that, don't do it. Just like squirt some, yellow mustard on there and call it a day. You have vegetables, you have your fat, you have your protein, and you have your carbs. So it's just you want to make sure that you're hitting those with your meals and your snacks. Like you maybe not all three of them, but if you do it like a fat and a carb or a protein and a carb, like meaning like a fruit or a vegetable or something to go along with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll do one more quick one. I think we don't give enough credit to smoothies either. You can jam pack those for a snack, especially if you're someone on the go. And there's a protein that I use that's like a full amino acid. So it has like 20 grams of protein per scoop. It's the Equip protein powder. It's good for those people who don't do dairy. It has stevia in it, but it's really clean and there's not a bunch of extra crap in there. And so you get what you get, and it's grass-fed beef and in the protein powder. And so you do a smoothie with chia seeds, a milk of choice, add some frozen like veggies in there, cherries, put some bone, like I use like a bone broth powder from Perfect Supplements,
Mm-hmm.
and like a frozen banana. And that's just a really great snack. And then if you want to add an extra, because if we're getting down to the nitty gritty of it, you want to chew to get digestion going,
Yeah.
then putting some oatmeal, grounding up some oatmeal in there, or having like something, or chew your smoothie, because you need that. People who drink smoothies too quickly tend to feel bloated, not because of what's in there, but because their
Me.
digestion is not working properly. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a whole mindful eating kind of tip. But
Speaking of, as I'm listening you, as I'm listening to you list these dishes, I can only help but think about my aunties and my Caribbean sisters and brothers. For thinking, what can we do from our culture? But again, it probably comes down to like the preparation standpoint, because we're big on chicken, and fish, beef and these different things. But I'm assuming it comes down to most likely how we preparing those.
do people from home listen to this podcast?
Oh yeah, they might not want listeners.
So tell me some things that are from home. So you have chicken and fish. You said rice, potatoes. Like what else are some things?
No, they're gonna tell me I'm not Antiguan enough because I can't remember. But no, basically rice is a staple, at least in my house. Rice. You got chicken, that could be stew chicken, that could be barbecue, that could be we do have some goat, so that could be stew goat or curry goat,
Mm-hmm.
or like pork or beef. It just depends. Sometimes we'll stew it more. It'll be like a
Okay.
stew. Then we'll eat it with rice, and then we'll have like sweet potatoes, plantains, whether it's fried or boiled, and of course our veg, pumpkin, squash, and these different things.
Okay, so let's talk about some, I mean, if you don't mind, if we talk about some like tricks to add more nutrient density to some of those. Would that be okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, like, so cooking your rice, like, so adding bone broth to your rice instead of just cooking it with water, it's going to soak up that bone broth. And so then you're adding that fat, and then that's going to balance your blood sugar better than just rice on its own.
Oh, okay.
And then
Interesting.
if you do barbecue, like with the chicken, like making a dry rub with your herbs, like, and spices, and then frying, if you're going to fry, like fry with like a good, like healthier fat over a vegetable oil,
Yeah.
of sorts.
Okay.
So it's just small tweaks, like
Small
simplifying.
actionable tweaks, yeah.
Yeah.
So you're hearing that if you're listening out here, you're from the Caribbean or you're from Antigua, of course we can still eat our food, but we just want to be mindful of how we are preparing it or, tweaking it to add something that's like a healthy alternative. That bone broth for the rice, I'm going to try that, and I'm definitely going to report back to you. And I report back to my tea tasters here so that we can know, I can let them know how it is. But of course, again, small actionable steps. We don't have
Yeah.
to make like drastic, especially, we're busy working moms, working people. We don't have to make like big steps, but it just takes one step at a time. And as you become more consistent, I think it's all about educating ourselves about what's right, what works for us, and what doesn't work for us as well.
Yeah.
Because I think that's a big misconception, thinking that somebody on social media, somebody on YouTube may say, "Oh, I'm going to put X, Y, Z in here," and then it may not work for me.
Yeah, because it comes down to bio individuality, and you could be related to somebody and their needs completely are different from you.
Mm-hmm.
And even like, so kind of going back to what you said, like those are ways you can do it, but even adding in like a green, or like the goal is to eat the rainbow, and so
Mm-hmm.
have your Antiguan plate, but then add some color of like green or deeply colored veggies to it, or fruit, and you're getting a variety of minerals, and that's going to feed you and so we don't want to go too big, especially when you're making the changes and you're busy.
Yep, we got to make one step at a time. If we
Right.
can just incorporate one thing, and in the episode before this, when I mentioned, I say, no, we're talking about incorporating healthy habits and routines. We don't have to get overwhelmed by adding everything, especially because it's a new year. We think, oh, let's make this resolution, or let's make these goals, and then they're big goals. And then by the time the end of a month come, we can't even keep up. So it's all about those small actionable steps, one day at a time, and it becomes a habit. And then once you've mastered that, in a sense, it becomes consistent. Then you can add something else, because we don't have to do everything all at once. And I think that's where we get lost sometimes,
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned mindful eating, so I want to know a little bit more about that, because I think I did a podcast episode sometime last year, briefly touching on that. But what is the importance of mindful eating, and how can it impact our overall well-being? Because I know you mentioned about chewing our smoothies and these different things, but for those who don't know, what is mindful eating? What is it? And how can it impact our overall well-being?
So our bodies live in a state of either sympathetic, so like fight or flight, or it lives in parasympathetic, which is rest and digest. And mindful eating, the goal of that is to move the body into rest and digest, because if you're in the fight or flight, you will not be able to digest your food. And so there's a saying that, like, if you're running from a bear, your body's not going to be paying attention to the food that you're eating. It's going to send the blood flow and every other, like, all to the extremities of your body. So it's either going to fight or it's going to run. And so if you're stressed out, that's essentially, our body doesn't know that we're not running from a bear. I mean, our eyes can see that, but everything else, if it's stressed, it can't see that. So it's going to think, okay, I don't have time. I don't have the capacity to digest this food. I need to fight or flight. Like I'm living in a stressed out state. So mindful eating helps us calm the body in a sense to where we can actually absorb the nutrients from the food we're eating. And if you're in that state while you're eating constantly, the fight or flight, then you could be eating the healthiest meal in the entire world. But if you're not in the rest and digest, the parasympathetic state, you're not going to be able to absorb any of the nutrients that you're intaking. I mean, maybe some, but like not really enough. You will then come out with bloating, feeling gassy, constipation, like your system will not function properly. And majority of diseases that we deal with all begin in the gut. And so it's really important that we take care of our gut, and as much as we can, as really busy human beings, we sit down and eat in a parasympathetic state.
So again, for someone who is busy, like for me, I have a I have a bad habit where, I mean, for the most part at my job, I'm sitting behind a computer for most of the day. Of course, I'm incorporating movement here and there, but I think sometimes I'm working while eating. So it technically is supposed to be my lunch, but I'm quote unquote eating through my lunch. So I'm eating, trying to focus on what I'm doing, then thinking about something else, and it's all over. So how can we incorporate? I know you say we need to be sitting and be focused, but how can we really incorporate for individuals who are working and there's a lot of tasks? Because sometimes one thing about these jobs, they need their job to be done.
Yeah, yeah.
even though you have an allocated lunch break, sometimes it depends on, it could be a 30-minute lunch break, it could be an hour lunch break, whatever the case may be. You're having to rush to eat essentially during that lunch break, or if you're in school in between classes, so you're having to rush, so your food is not settled, you're not even getting to one, enjoy what you're eating. And then you're just rushing through. Like I would say, always say back home, you're cutting and you're swallowing. Like you're just cutting and swallowing, cutting and swallowing,
Mm-hmm.
so you can get to the next best thing. So how can we essentially ensure that we are practicing mindful eating, or practicing taking our time when it comes to eating during that busy day? Because sometimes to me, my days get busy at work. I'm either forgetting to eat lunch, or I'm rushing to eat lunch so I can get back to the task at hand, or I'm eating while working, and then it's just before you know, I forgot I'm actually eating, because it's like, oh, did I finish my meal? Because there's just nothing. It just like I was just eating aimlessly, if that makes sense. So
Right.
how can we incorporate to ensure that we are as consistent as we possibly can with mindful eating, or eating our meals in between lunch or class or whatever we have going on?
I think it goes back to, so we definitely need no distractions, but like I think, is there a handful of times during your week that you can carve out 20 minutes to eat, like a few days a week, or if it's one meal a day where it's not at work that you can carve out? Because I think it's also recognizing too that when you eat the way that you need to, and eat that satiates you and balances your blood sugar, like you're going to then show up kind of as your best self too, if you can make the time to do that, which is hard to do that for 3 meals a day and snacks. But if we can get a good solid amount of work done, is there 15 minutes that we can, for our snack, or say, like, step away and take a walk, get our, and maybe go sit outside and eat our snack. Maybe not in the frigid cold temperatures, but you get my like,
Yeah.
or when it's lunchtime, like, okay, can I write down what I need to do so that I can have it out of my brain? Turn away from your desk if there's no like place to eat, or you're in between class, like take some time to really try to eat mindfully. And again, it's not possible maybe every meal of every day, but set a goal for yourself. Okay, I can do it at this meal at this day, because again, we're human and life happens. And sometimes I
Yeah.
work in front of my desk while I eat, like, because you said, like, it's just, that's the time I can get things done. But I don't do that for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so if you know what I mean? So I don't have my phone, or I'm not working from my phone or my computer while I'm eating dinner or breakfast. So maybe sometimes at lunch, that's just what you have to do. But carving out, like, okay, this week, 3 days, 4 days a week, I'm going to try to really eat without distraction. So no phone, no technology, no podcasts, no reading, and really focus on like connecting with your food and being thankful, like, oh, this is going to fuel me for the rest of the day. I don't know if that answers, because it's just like, I think it is hard when we're all working, or we're all busy, or going to
Yeah.
class, or whatever those things. But do you have any moments in your day, like, more, I guess it's a question for your listeners, because I know my schedule, I don't know theirs. So if you can
Yeah.
really think about, like, are there moments in your day where you can carve out the time to eat without a distraction? Like, that's going to serve you better long term than hustling through every meal every day.
Yeah, and I think, because you made a good point, you're not hustling through eating breakfast, lunch, or dinner. So sometimes, again, life is unpredictable. We are busy people. We cannot deny that we are. No one is perfect. But so maybe, like you say, breakfast, make it, and that's the first meal in the day. Be intentional. Maybe that should be the meal that you're eating without any phones, without any sort of distractions per se. That should be maybe a boundary that you can create to say, what, no matter what, breakfast is my meal that I'm eating, and I'm going to be intentional. I'm going to be mindful. Granted, things can happen, and like you mentioned earlier, we have to be flexible. But when we talk about mindful eating, it may not be breakfast, it may not be lunch, it may end up being dinner. When the day is over, you can kind of unwind. That can be the one meal that you can eat in peace, where you're not having any distractions, or you get to control if you want to respond to an email or a text message or whatever it is. But breakfast and lunch, that may not be, because we're trying to rush to leave the house, all these different things. And then that can also mean, for breakfast, you get up an hour earlier so you can prepare your meal. So there's just so many different nuances that we can do, so many different things that we can try. But it just comes down to ensuring that you, as an individual, want to be better.
Yeah.
And taking it, I think, one day at a time. Because again, for me, I would get overwhelmed, because in my mind, if I start eating healthy for 1 week, I'm expecting to see a six pack the next week. I'm keeping it real. Or if I'm eating on time for 1 week, I'm expecting no migraines the next week. Like there's just so many different things, but that's just my mind. So I've had to reprogram my mindset that, done is even better than good. If I'm getting to eat a meal, okay, it may be with some distractions, but at the same time, I can still try to bring it back, or I can have some sort of time alone or some intention when I'm eating, and then setting those boundaries, because something work can wait.
Yeah.
If you have to be a few minutes late for class, then that's fine. I think it's better for you to be fed,
Yep.
so you can feel your best self, than to be at work or at class passing out, or just not being able to even focus. Because when you're hungry and in class or at work, what focus are we on? We can't focus. That happens. If I'm hungry, I'm just not the same person.
Yeah.
Like when they made that Snicker commercial about hungry while we grab a Snicker, they were talking to me.
Yeah.
Because because when I'm hungry, like I cannot hear you. My mood is different. It's just like when I'm really hungry. And I've been in classes before when I'm hungry and I can't focus because I'm thinking about, okay, when I get out of class, I'm going to go make this meal. I'm going to go buy whatever. So what am I learning? Because I'm not paying attention, because I'm not providing the nutrients for my body. So I think it's important to those of you listening, when we talk about mindful eating, nobody's perfect, but you got to create the boundary to decide what meal you're going to choose to eat without any sort of distraction. It is doable, because I've done it. And if I can do it, because I'm telling you, my phone lives in my hand, because I'm always doing something on my phone.
Yeah.
Well, you're on social media. It's not even social media. It's like work, but it's just easy to have that phone with you sometimes.
Yeah.
Or no, what I do is I try, like I'll read while eating. And even that sometimes can be a distraction, because here I go trying to read, oh, this book is juicy, or oh, this is important. And then I'm not necessarily paying attention to that meal. And you mentioned being thankful too. Oh, we got to be thankful. And I think that's something that many of us sometimes forget. Maybe not, maybe it's just me sometimes, but we're not realizing that. Or sometimes, even if we're saying thank you for this meal, or thank you God for this meal, I don't think we're really realizing what we're saying sometimes. And I could be wrong.
No,
I think
you're
it's
right.
just something, because it's common to say, oh, thank you, because we know we're grateful, we're thankful. But, again, another part of mindful eating is really and truly being able to pray over your food, or just be realizing that, wow, I have some rice and chicken. I have a meal in front of me that it's a privilege in itself.
It really
especially
is.
given how society is.
Yeah, and that's what was on my list too, of like, because when you sit there, so these are like a couple of tips, I guess you could say too, but like when you're sitting there and you dive into your food, you're not slowing down. So like even if there's no distraction of TV or phone or whatever it is, like, or computer, like you're still not slowing down into that parasympathetic state. So like saying a prayer and really thinking about, because when you pray and you're breathing and you're like your body is
that
slowing
breath,
down, you're able to really relish and like, oh gosh, like I do have a plate of food that is going to fuel me, and it's going to make my brain sharp. It's going to build muscle. It's going to, maybe not in a week, but like, but it's going to fuel you so that you can do the things that you were created to do. Like, I know that's big picture, but I love to like, I'm an emotional gal. So, but like, I wear my heart on my sleeve, but that's what that's what you get when you start slowing down. You start thinking of things in a different perspective. And so slow down before you take that first bite, because digestion is a north to south function. So it starts in your brain and it starts way before you put your first bite of food in your mouth. So it's doing the breath work, some box breathing before you take your bite, because that's, sending a signal to your mouth to start salivating so that you can break down food and produce the acids that it needs to in your stomach. I mean, it's all connected.
Yeah.
Put your fork down in between each bite so that you're taking the time, and then chewing 20 to 30 times before you swallow. So making it that mush, like smoothie consistency. I know it's a lot, but if you're not, your body's going to see that food as a pathogen, and then it's not going to break down. And that causes gut. Like there's so many things that your immune system is too busy fighting the food instead of absorbing the food. So I went on like way too, like a lot of.
No, I love it. I love it.
But slowing down is huge. And I think sometimes we can't help to live in a busy world, but can we slow down the hustle just a smidge so that you can take care of yourself to be here to do the things that you need to do.
Brittany, I don't think there's a better way for me to wrap this episode up because I know we'll be here all day if we continue. But I think it's just like this is the perfect way to end this particular episode. And I'm already thinking about having you back to talk about other things too. But that's besides the point. And I think,
Okay.
slowing down just a smidge, taking breaks in between our, and I'm glad you said that, like, having the fork. Because me, I'll have the fork next to my mouth while I'm still chewing. It's a whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's because again, we're not mindful, we're not being intentional. We just know, at least for me, it's eating time. Let me just eat because I gotta provide or put some sort of food in my body. But we're not thinking about the different mechanics. Like in school growing up, we knew about chewing the food. It gotta go down into, I forgot all the different parts, but I'm talking about. And we gotta chew 20 to 30 times. They're saying that, but sometimes to me, I'm just cutting and I'm just chewing 3, 4, 5, and then maybe that's why I have issues that I have at this point when I'm thinking about it. Maybe that's why I'm having all these gastro digestive issues. But again, I think one of the key takeaways to me is ensuring that we are busy, accept that, be flexible, but also learn in the midst of the busyness to try to center and calm yourself during that time to prepare a meal to eat and be intentional and mindful with that. So with that being said, I want to thank you, Brittany. I am so happy I got you on this podcast. You don't even understand. So I want to thank you for coming on and being an amazing guest and for just educating us, because I think you did shed some light on a lot. And I think sometimes when we talk about nutrition, it can be so intimidating. It can be so intimidating, and then you just don't want to even do better, not because you don't want to, but it's just the hassle and thinking about, oh, this is what I should be doing. I have to live to it by a strict law or strict rule. And I'm happy that you told us in the beginning to definitely be flexible, because I think that's an issue with me as well, thinking, oh, I need to eat this meal, that meal, I can only snack this time. And it's like, be flexible. Your body's going to crave whatever you want. And I feel like as menstruating individuals too, we know the different phases of our menstrual cycle. What we want week 1 is not what we're going to want in week 2, So again, knowing about that, and I think that'd be an important. But we'll talk about cycle syncing in another episode. But definitely, I do want to thank you for being on here.
Thank you. I just want to say too that I think that's why it's important to work with somebody too, because they can it's totally a plug, but yes, it's important that you work with a practitioner because they can help you break down those barriers and the walls that come with this, what we assume eating nutritiously looks like. So working with somebody and doing testing to know exactly what you need makes all the difference in the world, and to encourage you while you're doing it and to help just make those little tweaks as you're working together. But that's it.
And that's part of our health and well-being as well. We can't everything we're not meant to do everything on our own. And I think sometimes we give health practitioners a negative flack to where, this costs this money. But like I always say, investing in yourself, it's costly, but it's very worth it and necessary.
You pay for it now or pay for it later. You're going to pay for it either way. It is hard, it is hard to swallow sometimes, but that's the truth.
You have to. Yeah, you have to. It's better to pay for it now than later, because later it's definitely not going to be greater. For sure.
For sure.
That was a good little. That was a good little one. Yeah, I know, right? but tell the people, for those who may want to work with you, just tell them where they can find you. I'll put all your information, everything that you have in the show notes. But just tell them where they can find you and what you offer, what you're offering. This is your time to shine.
Okay. I'm on Instagram. My handle is Brit, Brit, Dunbar _. And then I have a website. It's magnoliawell.co. Couldn't find a .com. But all the business owners out there knowing what that feels like. But I offer functional testing, so hair tissue mineral analysis testing and stool testing, bioresonance scans. I am able to help look at your health from a different perspective and a functional perspective. And we look with a food first approach, a whole body approach. So it's not just symptom chasing. I really take the time to know you and, what you're going through. And we build a protocol based on results and your lifestyle.
I love it. And if you are interested in working with Brittany, like I said, you can follow her on Instagram, but I'll put all her information in the show notes. It's going to be very important that you read that so you can reach out. And again, it's better to pay now than to pay later. So thank you, Brittany, for joining me.
Tanya, thank you. It was so great to be on here. It was so fun. Thank you for having me.
I love it. I love it. Thank you for joining me for another episode of Tea with Tanya. If you like this episode, be sure to share it with a friend. Don't forget to follow on Instagram at Tea with Tanya Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to the weekly Tea Talk newsletter. And of course, rate on Apple or Spotify and subscribe wherever you listen. See you next time. I love you for listening.